Hello, everyone, and welcome to day 9. We decided to do a little bit of a spin on this thing today. Letting me host is a great idea and a crazy idea at the same time. So welcome to day 9, everyone. It is all about our hostess with the mostest, as she will be talking about digital marketing proficiency. So let's go. So as you guys already know, JB is the host and the founder of this awesome idea, and I am also co-hosting with her, Najee Bartley. So let's talk about JB. JB is a marketing cloud consultant. She is a marketing cloud champion, 16-time certified applications architect, and she is the Salesforce marketing group leader in Phoenix, as well as a Trailblazer mentor. The girl knows her stuff.
Thanks for the introduction, Nazi.
Sure.
So every day we have been sharing what are all the things that we have. I'm grateful for. Today, I'm grateful for this bootcamp. It gave me an opportunity to continue to give back to the community. And I had a wonderful opportunity to know and interact with many of you and make new friends and got the opportunity to understand many people better. I'm also thankful for the enormous strength and support that we got throughout this bootcamp. I can't thank enough. So where are we in this bootcamp? And I can't believe we are in the last week of our bootcamp. As we get closer to the end of this bootcamp, you're only a few steps away from becoming a Marketing Cloud admin hero. I hope you're able to attend most of our sessions. If not, we have all the recordings. Go back and refresh all the topics. Stay on top of all the resources that we have been sharing after each session. And you will be there. You will be ready to take the certification. We had the study session conducted over the last weekend, and we shall also have the practice test. Take some time to prepare for all the concepts we have discussed and be ready for the test. We're going to announce more details about the test in our later session. And the next session is going to be on maintenance. That will be by Corina. Corina is a Marketing Cloud expert, and she has been in the Marketing Cloud arena for quite a long time. I believe she was working since the exact target from 2008 or sometime earlier than that. So we are so excited to have her next session, next Thursday. Here's a quick recap of all the sessions that we have done so far. You can also find a quick link to all the earlier recordings. And now today, we will move on to the digital marketing proficiency section of the exam. We have 13% of the questions covered from this topic, and you can expect around 8 questions on this one. More than 5 questions on the concept that I'm going to discuss today. So some of the topics we already discussed in our very first session with Vlad about different marketing cloud products and the features that are available. So today we're going to discuss about the digital marketing compliances and the best practices, and also how we follow the security. If you are completely attentive and follow all that we are discussing today, at the end of this 1 hour, I'm sure you'll definitely walk away with a lot of information. You can be an awesome admin. I'm also going to touch upon a few topics from the setup that we might have already discussed about those in our earlier sessions. I will just touch upon them since they are important. So why do I have this here? No matter what kind of a car we own, even if it is a very expensive and a very high-end car, though it has a powerful engine or very effective internal features, when we are on the road, you need to follow the rules of the road. It doesn't matter what kind of a car we have. We must ensure that we fasten the seat belts, the car has the airbags properly installed, and brakes are working, and the engine is in good condition, and make sure that you follow all the safety precautions. You need to follow the safety rules and also the speed limits. And that can vary from state to state and from country to country. And these are the rules that are set in place for our own safety and for the safety of others. So why do I have this picture here? There's a lot that we can relate to in our Marketing Cloud account as well. So Salesforce Marketing Cloud is the #1 email marketing platform. And if I were to define Marketing Cloud in one word, I would say Marketing Cloud is a beast. You have already seen various studios and builders in our previous sessions. And do you know Marketing Cloud sends over 1.5 billion emails a day? That's 1.5 billion targeted or personalized or engaging emails in a day. So while we have this much of an engagement, it is also very important that we follow the compliances that are in place. These concepts are very important to know, no matter where you're in your journey, whether you're preparing for your certification or you're just a beginner and trying to learn how Marketing Cloud works, or you're an experienced admin. It's essential that you adhere to these best practices and compliances. So these are the concepts that we are going to discuss today. The first and the most important one is the CAN-SPAM compliance. So according to this act, we need to ensure that each email or each communication that we send out from our Marketing Cloud account has certain elements in there, in the email or in the message. This is the law that was created in 2003, and it is a set of rules, mostly for the commercial emails. And if we do not follow these rules, it could result in harsh penalties. So we need to make sure that in each of our communication, we have the sender information in the header that is clearly identified. And also use a subject line that relates more to the content of the email. Don't mislead the subscribers with mismatching subject line and a different content in the email. And if you are sending a promotional message, make sure that you identify that as an advertisement or a promotional message. And make sure that you only send these messages to the subscribers who have opted in. And at the bottom of the email, you should include your physical mailing address. And also there should be a link for the subscribers to unsubscribe if they no longer want to receive the email communications. And once they hit the unsubscribe button, we need to make sure that that is in place in our account within the 10 days. And also the links that we have in the email should be functional for the next 30 days. Let's say we send an email today and the subscriber goes on the 5th day and hits on the unsubscribe button. So we need to make sure that he is unsubscribed from our system within the next 15 days. That is 10 days after he unsubscribes. And also we need to make sure that the unsubscribe link in the email is functioning till the 30 days. Let's say if we send the email today, it should be functioning until the next month. So while we make sure that we have all this information included in the email, it is also necessary that we need to make sure that we don't include certain information in there, like a false or misleading from name or a misleading subject line that masks the purpose of the email. And also we need to make sure that the email addresses that we are sending to is not something that we bought or we just took from the internet. Non-compliance of this can be very costly, and penalties can be up to $43,000 for an email. So it is very important to make sure that we have all these elements in place. And so when we are a new client, when we acquire a new SAP or an IP address, the mailbox providers like Yahoo or Gmail, they don't know who we are. We're just a new person and they can't trust us. So they need to collect many data about us. So they use the data to determine whether they send our email to the inbox or to the spam folder, or they want to reject it. So to increase the chances of reaching the inbox, we must have a solid understanding of what affects the deliverability. So this sender reputation is something that we build gradually with ISPs. And as per this reputation, they're going to decide whether they want to block or they want to deliver them to the inbox. So to establish this one, we need to make sure that we follow some best practices. And over the time, the ISPs looks at the metrics that they collect and the user feedback, and they will change the status and they will deliver the inbox emails to the inbox. These are some of the factors that affect the sender reputation. If there are many spam complaints, we send the emails and the subscribers report it as spam, then it can affect your sender reputation. And we need to make sure that we are not sending to invalid email addresses, which can result in bounces. And it doesn't hit the spam traps. And we need to make sure that we have proper authentication from the sender before we send it. And also make sure that the email that we are sending has high engagement from the subscribers. Let's say we send the emails and we see less engagement. We have many inactive subscribers, then we need to make sure that we are limiting the sends to those subscribers. We need to make sure that whatever we are sending to whoever we are sending the emails to, we need to make sure that they are opted in and are only receiving the emails that they expect to receive. And it's a good practice to not overwhelm the subscribers with too many emails. And you can set some expectations as with the cadence. Tell them how often and what kind of emails they can expect from us in the next few days. And if you're sending very frequently, create a profile center link and give them an option to decide which kind of emails they want to receive. And the next very important thing is the sender authentication package. We can better describe it as a branding tool. It maps your domain name that you pick. It maps it with the domain name in all the places where a domain is going to show in all the email messages. We can say it's a collection of products including the private domain, branding, dedicated IP address, and the reply mail management. These products can also be purchased individually, but the link and image wrapping that brands your account only comes from the SAP. We're going to look at it in detail in the next slide. So let's say we don't have an SAP in place. Our marketing cloud account is just fresh and we don't have anything configured. We didn't purchase the SAP yet. This is how an email will look like. So looking at the very top portion of it, that's the sender information in there. The from name could be anything that you have used to send the email from. And it doesn't have any reply domain or the bounce domains or the DKIM. None of the information is present in there. And by default, it will be exacttarget.com. It will be the marketing cloud's default branding domain in there. So what if we want to have our own branding, our own name in all these domains? So we can purchase the SAP, and this is an example of how an email looks with an SAP configured. So looking at the header information, the from name will be the SAP that you have chosen. It will be the sender name, the from name, email at the domain that you have chosen. And all the other links, the reply mail management, the bounce and BKIM, everything will have your own branding in here. So everything will be prefixed. We will have the SAP domain name in its as a part of it. Let's look at some of the example. I have a small exercise for you to understand how this works and how the SAP is reflected on all the other domains. I'll start with an SAP domain, example 1, email.skillup.com. And for this one, the reply mail management domain is going to be reply.email.skillup.com. And the bounce domain is going to be bounce.email.skillup.com. And view as web page domain is going to be view.email.skillup.com. And all the clicks is going to be having this click.email.skillup.com, and all the images will refer to this domain. Image.email.skillup.com, and all the landing pages will refer to this one, pages.email.skillup.com. So by looking at this link itself, you would be able to determine which one is it. Now, as we have seen, a sender authentication package consists of 4 individual components: private domain, account branding, dedicated address, IP address, and reply mail management. So these are the ones that come when we purchase the SAP. Let's say we want to have a separate domain or an IP address besides the one that we have from the SAP. We can purchase more private domains if we want to send from a domain other than the one configured in the SAP. And you can still use the ones that come from the SAP. We will look at an example. We will look at it in detail in the next slide. If a BU doesn't have their own private domain, they will use the one that is coming from the parent BU. And one BU can have multiple private domains. And likewise, the same with the IP addresses. You can purchase more IP addresses. The one that comes with the SAP, you can still use it. If you want to use more, you can go ahead and purchase more IP addresses as well. And one BU can have multiple IP addresses. As we say, the picture is worth more than 1,000 words. This is a great picture and it has a lot of information here. Let's take a quick pause here and try to understand what's represented in there. So this is the structure of the BUs in Marketing Cloud account. The group is the parent BU, and we have 2 child BUs, brand 1 and brand 2, and we have 2 other child BUs for the first BU. So let's review the configuration that is done in here. So the parent BU, the group, it has the SAP configured, and as part of the SAP, it has the IP address. And if you see at the second, the brand 1 BU, it has a separate SAP for itself. They went ahead and brought another SAP and 2 more IP addresses. So we can understand that a BU can have another SAP apart from the parent BU, and it could also have multiple IP addresses. If you look at the brand 2 BU, they have 2 domains. So it means they could use the ones coming from the parent BU, and also they could use the domains that they have purchased. And the domain is the one that they have purchased and they can use it, but they haven't purchased any IP address. In this case, they're going to use the one that's coming from the parent BU. And the next brand 1, brand 2, brand 1 EMEA and brand 2 MR have their own domain IDs, domain address and IP address. Let's see how it's going to affect all the links and the image wrapping in the child BUs. So in the parent BU, we have SAP configured as marketing.group.com. So all the images and links that will be branded as marketing.group.com, and the IP address will be the one that is mentioned in there. In the brand 1 child BU, we have another SAP, marketing.brand1.com. So they would be able to use this SAP. If you look at here in this one, they will be able to use this SAP, and all the links and images will be wrapped using this SAP. And the IP address will be the ones that they purchased. And for the brand 2, they have purchased their own domains, but they don't have the SAP and the IP address. So in this case, they're going to get the SAP from the parent BU and the IP also from the parent BU. So in this case, they have 3 domains. One, so in the sender information, they can use the one that is coming from the parent and the other 2 that they have purchased in here. And likewise, this applies to the child BUs as well. So let's look at the brand 2 AMR BU. So they have purchased the IP. They don't have their own SAP. So SAP comes from the parent BU, that is the brand 1, and not the group BU. And the IP is also coming from the parent BU, and the sender is going to be from the parent BU's SAP. This is important to understand how the SAP is reflected and how it takes effect through inheritance. And one of the important point about SAP is you can go ahead and purchase SAP if you have a target list of to 50,000 email messages per month, and if you're concerned about branding, if you want to have your branded links and all images and all the replies and all in there, so you can go with the SAP. You can opt not to have the SAP, but still you need to be aware that all the branding will be using the Marketing Cloud's default domain, exacttarget.com. Next one is the IP warming. So until now, you have seen, you have started with a fresh Marketing Cloud account, and you know how the best practices, what the best practices are, and what compliances are in place that you need to adhere to, and how can you start sending emails by configuring the SAP. And once we configure the SAP, everything is brand new. We don't have any sender reputation established yet. And we need to establish the sender reputation by slowly and methodically sending in small volumes. Why small volumes? Because when we send in bulk volume, it's going to affect, the ISPs are going to monitor, and they may regard us as spammers. So we need to make sure that we send a small list and keep it increasing the volume over the period. So we do have some recommendations to follow. We need to make sure that we are sending to the most active and engaged subscribers. And also, if there is a long list and some of the emails are non-sensitive, then you can split them and send them over various days, and split campaigns between different IP addresses, and also start slowly and try to build up the list. And this is the recommended strategy that we need to follow for the IP warming. If we can segment our list by the domains, this is the recommended approach for each domain. So on day one, first 3 days, for these particular domains, we'll start with 20,000 or 5,000 or 20,000 accordingly as listed in this chart. And in the day 4 to 5, you can send these many emails, 6 to 7 these many. So you can follow this chart and keep sending with increased volumes. So this method is recommended, and it is much faster because we could finish our IP warming within 29 days. But if we cannot segment our list by the domain, we can also follow this chart. So this is by the daily maximum volume. This can be applicable to any domain. So in the first week, we can start with 50,000, and in the next week, we double the volume, and in the next week, we double the volume. We keep doubling it, and it takes 36 plus days to finish our IP warming. It is much slower compared to the IP warming that we do with the domains. And these are a list of resources from the trailhead that you can follow to know more details about this. And there is a wonderful webinar that was done by Gilda, and Al Iverson was the product expert, and he has given a lot of details in it. So this is a link to the webinar if you want to know more about how deliverability works and what impacts, what affects it. You can go and check this recording. And with the IP warming, we need to make sure that we send small volumes and build desirable volume over the next 30 days, so that ISPs will have the reputation built, and they know that it's coming from an authenticated source. So where are we here? So we have reviewed the CAN spam compliance. sender reputation, SAP, and IP warming. So if you're a new admin, you know how to start, what to follow, and how to configure the SAP and how it is impacted, and how to do the IP warming. So when you have a new Marketing Cloud account, so you should give some time to achieve maximum deliverability. Moving on, let's know about personally identifiable information. In the recent years, we all know that and are more concerned about our online data privacy and what companies are storing, what information are storing about us, the web history, personal information, and many things. PII is any information that can be used to identify a particular person. It could be traced to identify the person, and it relates to the full name, the home address, email address, SSN, passport number, driver's license, credit cards, date of birth, telephone number, login details, and device IDs, cookies, and IP address. So all of this information can be used to identify a particular person. Let's say we don't have this information, but we have the bits and pieces of this information that can still be stitched together, and it can be used to identify a person. So this is termed as a linkable information. So it is not information that can be able to identify a person by its own, but when combined with another piece, we would be able to trace a person. It could be a combination of a first name or a last name, country, state, city, and code, which can be used to find the address, the gender, and the age, the race, job position. So using all these bits and pieces, we could still be able to identify a person. So why identifying this is important is, so when we send out communications from the Marketing Cloud, or when we store information in the Marketing Cloud, we need to ensure that we have this data stored securely. So one way to do is the field level encryption. This is encrypting the sensitive data using some cryptography. It will be the key generated by the encryption key management. So whenever, let's say we have the data sitting in the warehouse and we are importing that data into the Marketing Cloud. So through this encryption, the sensitive data is encrypted during the time of import itself. And the next one is the tokenized sending. And we can use this tokenized sending to store the contact data that is sensitive in the external system itself, and we can send the data only during the send time. So until we send the email from the Marketing Cloud, we don't need to get that information into Marketing Cloud. We can still store it in an external system, and while the email send, you can bring it into the Marketing Cloud. We can do that using API, and in the API, you can include that information. And this sensitive information can include the personally identifiable information or the health information or any other information that is sensitive. And all other non-sensitive information, you can still store in the Marketing Cloud, and you can use it for segmentation purposes. And the next one is the transparent data encryption. It is also called data at rest encryption. It is encryption of the data and log files. It could be also the one that is in an external system. So this could be used when on the data that is at rest, then we are not transferring the data. It could be the files or the log information that sits in an external system. So even if a theft happens, the person will not be able to encrypt or view or browse the data because it is already encrypted using this method. And we are now here. You are now moving towards being an awesome admin. You're well equipped with all the tools required to make sure you're in compliance and you have all the things in place. And now we have a few small topics in here, that is the whitelisting, audit trail, and the super messages. We call it Allowlists or the whitelist. Domain whitelist is to store the domains. So, I'm sorry. So domain whitelist is intended to store the domains, so you can redirect to those domains. So whatever the domains that we whitelist in there, they can you can use those to redirect. If not, let's say, let's take an example. You host a form on a cloud page on your site, and that refers to another website, another link. So your form will fail if that subdomain is not listed. So you need to make sure that you enable the domain whitelisting and also make sure that you add the domain to that list. An IP whitelisting is used when your servers can interact with Marketing Cloud applications from several different applications. Let's say you want to interact or you want to manipulate your data in the Marketing Cloud from an external system using the API, or you want to send some email communications from an external system, then you can allow you can do the IP whitelisting and you can use that. This is also used for Marketing Cloud configuration as well, Marketing Cloud Connect as well. To properly use the API or the integrations, whitelist Marketing Cloud IP addresses to allow uninterrupted communication. And export email whitelist is something we have already seen in the setup section. It contains a list of all the individual email addresses or the domains. So whoever listed in this whitelist, so they only could receive the exports from our emails. So we can also export the data from the subscriber export wizard or from the reports. We want to export the reports also. Then we need to make sure that the person's email address is whitelisted. And all these things can be set up in the setup section. And here's the audit trail. So we do a lot of things in our Marketing Cloud account. And if you want to go back and see what changes have been done or what configuration were in effect, then you can go back and look at the audit trail. The audit trail is of two types, the basic and the advanced. You can go and check the audit trail by using the data views, or you can also use the APIs to extract from the Marketing Cloud account. So as I said, there are two types of audit trails. Number one is the basic and the other one is the advanced. The type of data collected for the basic is limited. So it is limited to the user authentication, changes to the security settings, IP addresses, changes to users, roles, or permissions. And the data is stored only for the 30-day period. If you want to have access to data for a longer period, that is 60 days, you can contact the Marketing Cloud support and have the advanced audit logs. You can get this information via API Automation Studio extracts. And this can include all the basic audit events that were covered in the basic audit trail. And besides that, you can also access the Marketing Cloud setup changes, the email studio on the cloud pages changes, mobile push, mobile connect, and Google Analytics integrations as well. And the next one is about the super messages. So this is how we track our current utilization. So we go ahead and purchase the Marketing Cloud licenses, and we have a certain edition, and it comes with certain features. And also we in our contract, we will have the contacts that are allowed, that we can have, that we can send emails to, and also it also includes the super messages that we can utilize. So super messages are any type of messages that are sent to the customers. It can be an email or a message or a push notification. So each kind of message is calculated as in different terms. So let's say an email is calculated as one super message, and MMS or an SMS, depending on its length, can be calculated as 4 super messages. So our current utilization will be calculated in terms of the super messages. If we want to get a stat of how many super messages that we are utilizing, you can contact the support and they will be able to provide. Let's take a look at how the super messages work and how it changes per country and also by the message length and by type. So here's a list of all the types of messages that we can send from the Marketing Cloud account, and each one is calculated differently. So one email impression is calculated as 1 super message, and one web impression will be calculated as 2 super messages. And for the mobile push messages as well, each kind of communication is calculated differently. So each alert, it takes 1 super message, and each alert plus cloud page, it takes 1 super message. So you can go further review this. I have this link attached in the presentation as well. So for the email messages, each email consumes 1 super message, and if you mark the email as high priority, and it consumes 4 super messages. So you need to be aware of this, because when you want to send high priority messages, and you also need to be aware that it's going to consume more super messages. So you need to effectively judge when you want to go with high priority email messages. And it differs for the interactive email as well. Interactive email consumes 1 super message. And this is the list for the impressions and group connect messages. How many super messages it is calculated as. A cloud page is calculated as 1 super message. Landing page, 1 super message. Group connect, it is calculated as 10 super messages. Likewise, all the metrics. Here's a list of all how the SMS on the MMS messages are calculated. So how it is calculated differs by the country. So each country have its own code and it has its own calculation. Depending on this one, the super messages are going to be charged. And if you send to a country which is not listed in this chart here, it's going to be charged as 75. It's going to be charged at a multiplier of 75. I have this link included in the presentation. You can go back and refer to this one. And before we move on to the sample questions, if we want to know how our deliverability has been, so we have been sending email messages, so we are done with the IP warming, and we want to see how the deliverability has been, you can contact the support team and you can request for the reputation audit. So they will be able to give the reputation audit, and also you can ask them to enable the bounce detective. So you will be able to identify how many bounces are there, get information on that. And also there are some tools which you can use to calculate how your deliverability is and how your messages have been effective. Some of the examples of the tools are Return Path and the Google Postmaster tools, SNDS, Sender Score. Sender Score is a free tool and you can use it. And one way to use if your IP is warmed is to go to the Sender Score and try to look up your IP address. So you will be able to see if it has any history, then it means that it has the IP is warmed up. Let's take a quick look at sample questions. What features are included with Sender authentication package? Option A, private domain for cloud pages. B, account branded login page. C, reply mail management. D, dedicated IP address. E, multiple private domains for sending. NTO is sending emails with personally identifiable information, but does not want this data to be stored in Marketing Cloud. What security feature should they use? So we have seen different kinds of encryptions that we can do. One is tokenized sending, field level encryption, transparent data encryption, secure send log. Please post your answer in the chat box. So the answer is tokenized sending. Moving on to the last question that we have in here. What must be included in commercial emails to be in compliance with the Can-Spam Act? A, company name and contact email address, opt-out link and preference profile center link, opt-out link and company physical address and profile center link. Yeah, most of you have got the correct answer. It's the opt-out link and the company physical address. So these are the must. Now we'll move on to the Q&A. Naji, I'll turn it over to you.
Great job. That was awesome. Good job. So we just have a few questions about maybe like 5 or 6. So the first question that we have today is, can we use the same domain for multiple business units?
Yes, we can. If it is a child BU, it's going to inherit from the parent BU.
Great, great.
And we can also use the same SAP for different Marketing Cloud accounts. So if they are on the same stack, you could use the same SAP. So SAP, it includes the domain and the IP as well. So we can definitely use it across different accounts, but they need to be on the same stack.
Nice, nice. So the next question I have is, if you don't purchase SAP and are using exacttarget.com domain, is that on a shared server that has other businesses using it as well? If so, how does this impact your sender reputation?
So it's going to affect your sender reputation because you don't have your own SAP or your own IP address, and you will be essentially using a shared IP address. So it could affect your deliverability as well, because it depends on the other senders as well who are using the shared IP address. So if you want to have a good deliverability and also you target to send emails to more than 100,000 subscribers, then it's always recommended to go with your SIP and your own IP address.
Nice, nice. So what if you don't have a very large subscriber list? Like what if you have less than 10,000? Do you still need to do IP warming?
So in that case, you don't need to go for your dedicated IP address. You can just use the shared IP address. So shared IP address is something which will be shared by a different number of clients. So you would be using that, and you may not need to do IP warming. But even in that case, it's suggested to have an SAP. If you want to have your branding on all the links and images, you could still go ahead and purchase the SAP, excluding the dedicated IP address, and you can go with your shared IP pool.
Nice. I love that answer. Great answer. We have about 3 more. So, does Salesforce count, would Salesforce CRM count as tokenized sending when just using the contact ID?
Can you come again, Haji?
Sure. Would Salesforce CRM count as tokenized sending when just using the contact ID?
No, we need to specifically set the IV and the initialization vector and the key value before we do that. So it's by default, it's not.
Nice. Great, great. And our last 2 questions of the night are, is domain whitelisting a list of external domains you want to redirect to, or is it domains that you purchase in addition to your SAP?
It's a list of all external domains. Let's say you have a cloud page or a link in your email that refers to some external domains, not related to your domains. So you can include all those in the domain whitelisting, and you can have it in effect.
Nice. Okay, cool. And when viewing a cloud page, does that count as one super page, super message?
Right, yeah.
That does? Cool. All right. And the last question for the night is, does one SAP cover multiple private IP addresses in a single business unit?
So when we purchase an SAP, if we go for the dedicated IP, it's going to come with one IP. So we can opt for more IP addresses. So when we need more IP addresses, it depends on the number of emails that we want to send. So if, let's say, if our sends are less than 100,000 emails, then we can go ahead with the shared IP. If it is more than that, we can go for a dedicated IP. If we are targeting more than 2 million emails, then it's suggested to have 2 IP addresses. If it is more than 6 million, it's suggested to have 4, I believe. So it varies. So it's better to have more IP addresses if we have more subscribers.
Great, great answer. We are so happy that you answered everyone's questions. You did not leave anyone confused. Great job. We're so happy that you did a wonderful job. We're so happy that our host got to talk to everyone today. This was huge. Everyone, just a few reminders.
So since we have some time, I wanted to
Yeah.
make sure that we have all the Q&A answered. So now that we have some time, I would like to show how it all looks in the Marketing Cloud instance.
Oh, that's great.
So
okay,
you see, so this is the domain Allowlist. This is where we configure all the domains that we want to allow. So you add a domain, and if it has any subdomains, it can also be listed in there. It can also be allowed. So we can do all at once. Instead of listing each individual domain and its subdomains, we can do all at once if we check this option here. And next is the export email addresses, export email list. This is a training org, not all the features will be visible here. So I will look at the company settings and account settings here. So if you are a new admin and you don't know whether the SAP is configured for this particular instance for this account, so you can go in the setup and you can look at this account settings in here. If the SAP is configured, you would be able to see the SAP in here. So in sender authentication domain, so it doesn't have anything listed in here. An identity verification log. This is something which Manish has discussed in his earlier session. This gives a list of all the users who have logged in. So the first time they log in from a browser, they will be sent some code to their email to verify their identity. Besides their password, they need to enter some verification code. So all those activity will be recorded in here. And this is multi-factor authentication. So soon we will be having this as a mandate that we need to enable this multi-factor. As of now, we can skip it, but going maybe sometime later next year, we need to make sure that this is set up. This is multi-factor authentication is can also be treated as a two-way authentication, where one authentication will be our password and the second authentication could be any app on our mobile or any other application. We have already reviewed all these things in our setup session, and this is where we enable the audit trail. So you edit, enable audit trail, and from the time you enable, the data is going to be collected. It's not retroactive. It will be collected only from the time that we enable this option. We have reviewed the sender profiles, delivery profiles, and send classification, all these things in the setup part. And URL expiration is something that we set to make sure the URLs are functioning for a certain period. The maximum for this will be 2 years. Yeah, I think I covered everything. So in the setup home, you see this ribbon in here where you can have easy to click links to go to the release notes or the trailhead modules, some of the information, and also you can see the system status. Corina is going to discuss in much detail in our next session. And down here, you can have a single place where you can get to know all the data about your account, the number of data extensions, the content, the images or the emails that we have in there, the number of users that are present, automations or the journeys. You can get a list. It's a preview of all the things that are configured in our account. I think that is it from the setup. And I hope I covered everything. In case we missed anything, so we'll make sure that we have those covered in our next session. Any other questions, Naji?
No, that's literally it. That's good. I think you did a great job.
And if anyone
about the challenge that was going on in regards to the certification,
we can announce it later once we come up with the rules and we are all set with that.
Sounds great.
So we encourage everyone to keep going and don't stop learning and be ready for your certification. So the intent of this bootcamp is to equip you to be an awesome admin, and then also help you to get certified. So we are here to help you in all ways possible. So Naji has done a study session last week, and we're also answering the questions on the Slack channel, and all the speakers are also actively answering the questions. And we really appreciate you for all the interest and all your questions.
Don't forget, if you are looking for suggested tasks to talk about this particular topic, it will be in the homework section of the channel, of the Slack channel, as well as if you are looking for this recording, please look for it. It will be emailed to everyone within 24 hours of right now of this time, and it will be in the resources channel of our Slack channel as well. Don't forget to keep asking us questions. We're happy to help.
Thanks for joining today's session, and hope to see you in the next session. Until then, have a good
night.